Jackson Reyes never wanted fame. He liked quiet work, long space nights, and the calm hum of engines. As a Terran systems engineer on Port Gaia, one of Earth's small colonies, his job was simple: fix what was broken and stay out of politics. But all of that changed the day the Queen of the Starnari Empire pointed at him through a screen. It started like any other shift. Jackson sat in the corner of the dusty control room, sipping cold coffee and watching news broadcasts while waiting for a power relay to reset. The Starnari Empire was broadcasting a royal coronation, the new queen's crowning ceremony. It was a big deal for the galaxy. Billions of aliens across dozens of systems were tuned in. He didn't care much. Royal crowns and alien traditions didn't mean much to Earthfolk. Port Gaia was far from the Empire's core. The Starnari didn't bother humans much as long as the taxes were paid and no one caused trouble. The Queen stepped onto the marble stage. She was young, graceful, and dressed in silver and deep blue. Her name flashed on the screen in translation: Althea Velsar, daughter of flame and heir of the 100 stars. Jackson barely looked up. But then, something strange happened. The Queen paused. She stopped in the middle of the ceremony, ignoring the grand voices of her priests. Her bright violet eyes slowly turned and locked onto the camera lens. At first, Jackson thought it was just a camera trick, but then she lifted her hand and pointed directly at him. His cup fell from his hand, spilling coffee over the console. "Did she just point at me?" he muttered aloud. His co-worker glanced over. "What?" "The Queen. She just pointed. At this camera feed. At me." "Jackson, you okay? That's a galaxy-wide broadcast. She doesn't even know you exist." But deep down, he felt it. That moment wasn't random. Something in her eyes, a strange intensity, made it feel real, made it personal. And that's when the alarms started. Red. Lights flashed across the station. Port Gaia's orbital sensors picked up incoming ships. Fast ones, Imperial class. In less than 3 hours, 6 royal dropships arrived from above, sleek, black, and bearing the golden sigil of the Queen. The colony governor came running. Soldiers took positions. Confusion and fear spread fast. Jackson barely had time to grab his coat before a tall, silver-armored alien with 6 glowing eyes stepped out of a ship and called his name. "Lieutenant Jackson Reyes of Terra. By command of Her Royal Majesty Althea Velsar, you are to come with us." "What? Why? Am I under arrest?" he asked. "No. You have been summoned by the Queen herself." People around stared in shock. A few took out cameras. One child whispered, "Is he a prince now?" Jackson tried to argue. "I'm just a mechanic. There's no reason." "Refusal is not an option," the armored alien said firmly. "Prepare for departure." Before he could protest again, he was escorted aboard the lead ship. The ramp closed behind him with a hiss. The journey to Velmara, Yavi, Starnari Empire's capital, took only a few days using their advanced warp corridors. During the trip, Jackson was treated well, almost like a guest, but also like a prisoner. He was given a luxury room, fine food, and clean clothes. But guards stood outside his door day and night. He tried asking questions. "Why me?" No answer. "What does the Queen want?" Silence. "Is this a mistake?" A long pause, then the same reply. "Her Majesty does not make mistakes." Jackson stared out the ship's window. Stars zipped by as if fleeing something faster than thought. He wasn't sure what scared him more, the silence of space or the unknown waiting ahead. When they finally arrived at Velmara, Jackson saw a world like nothing he had ever imagined. A Dyson sphere, built around a star, glowing with city lights and floating towers. Tens of billions lived here, aliens from hundreds of species. And now, one human engineer from Earth had been pulled into its center. The queen didn't meet him right away. Instead, a royal aide escorted him to a palace wing. It was massive, filled with smooth stone walls, glowing panels, and soft music in the air. Jackson was told to rest, clean up, and wait. Wait for what? He asked again. For understanding, the aide replied. You will know when the queen is ready. That night, Jackson lay in a soft, floating bed, staring at the golden ceiling. None of it made sense. He had no royal blood, no hidden talents. He wasn't special. Just a guy who liked fixing things and drinking bad coffee. And yet the new queen of a galactic empire had pointed to him out of trillions. And now he was here. He didn't know why. He didn't know what came next. He only knew one thing for sure. She wouldn't let him leave. Jackson Reyes woke up to the sound of soft chimes. The ceiling of his guest room glowed with warm, golden light, gently fading into day. The bed was softer than anything he had ever slept on, and the air smelled like flowers mixed with clean metal. But Jackson wasn't calm. He sat up quickly, still in the strange white robes given to him the night before. The walls were smooth, the doors silent, and everything felt too perfect. He looked around and whispered, I'm not in a hotel. I'm in a royal cage. Just then, the door opened with a quiet hum. A tall alien woman entered. She had blue-gray skin, long silver hair, and large glowing eyes. She bowed slightly. Good morning, Jackson Reyes. I am Thalara, personal steward to guests of Her Majesty. Guests? Jackson asked. Or prisoners? Thalara smiled but said nothing. She handed him fresh robes, blue and gold in color. Today, you will be shown parts of the palace. The queen wishes you to feel welcome. Jackson narrowed his eyes. So I can leave? She paused. You may walk the palace. You may eat, read, and rest. But you may not leave Velmara. Thought so. The palace was beautiful, like something from a dream. Huge halls with floating statues, gardens full of glowing plants, and quiet ponds that reflected light from above. But it was also full of quiet guards. Jackson noticed them everywhere. They never spoke, just watched. He walked beside Thalara through a long corridor filled with paintings, images of past rulers, mighty battles, and strange creatures he didn't recognize. Why am I here? He asked again. Why me? The queen has her reasons, Thalara said. You are important. Important how? She said nothing. Later, they reached a vast open room with books floating in the air. A library, but different. Jackson reached for one, and it hovered in front of him, opening on its own. The pages glowed. This is the memory hall, Thalara said. Here, knowledge is alive. Jackson spent hours there. He read about the Starnari Empire, how it ruled thousands of worlds, how the royal bloodline was considered sacred, and how each ruler was chosen by strange forces tied to something called the Blood Link. He searched for anything about humans. There was little. Earth was seen as a young species. Unrefined, wild, useful for trade but not powerful, the text said. He frowned. Then something caught his eye, a small entry titled The Lost Strain. He opened it. The page spoke aloud in a soft voice. Long ago, before the fall of the first crown, a line of ancient blood was lost. It carried the spark of balance. Without it, no ruler could maintain the full strength of the throne. Jackson blinked. Under the text was a symbol, a twisting line that looked strangely human. He closed the book. His heart was racing now. Was this about him? That night, Jackson sat alone in a small garden. Artificial stars shone above the dome. He had questions and no answers. Then, footsteps. He turned and froze. Queen Althea Velsar stood at the edge of the garden, dressed in silver, her violet eyes calm but strong. "Hello, Jackson Reyes," she said softly. He stood up slowly. "Your Majesty." She tilted her head. You're angry. I'm confused. And yeah, maybe a little angry. You took me from my home. You won't let me leave. You won't tell me why. She walked closer. I pointed to you because I saw something in you. Something ancient. Something necessary. What does that mean? He asked. There is a sickness in the throne, she said. My bloodline is incomplete. I should not have survived the coronation, but I did. Because you were watching. That makes no sense. She looked at him, eyes glowing faintly. Our ancestors once shared something powerful with your kind. A link. A thread in the stars. That link has returned. In you. Jackson stepped back. So I'm a... What? A cure? A tool? No, she said. You are the key. He walked away, fists clenched. This is insane. I'm not special. I'm just an engineer. And yet you're here, she replied. Not by my will alone. The throne chose you, Jackson. I only answered. He turned toward her. Let me leave. She didn't answer. Right away. Then she said, If you leave now, the balance may break. I may die. And the Empire will fall into war. Jackson stared at her. She looked so calm, so sure, but her voice held something else. Fear. You could have told me this. Before dragging me across the galaxy, he said. I hoped you would see it yourself, she replied. I see a trap. No. A chance. He looked away. I need time, he said. You'll have it, she replied. But you cannot leave. Not yet. She turned and walked back into the palace. Hours later, Jackson stood on a balcony, looking over the glowing city. He didn't want this. He wasn't made for it. But the galaxy didn't care. He was part of something now, and he couldn't walk away. Not yet. Jackson Reyes could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the Queen's violet gaze, steady and full of secrets. She was waiting for him to understand something important. But what? The palace was quiet at night, except for the soft hum of machines hidden in the walls. Jackson knew he had to find answers on his own. If the Queen would not tell him, then maybe the palace's secrets would. He slipped quietly from his room, careful not to alert the guards. His feet made no sound on the polished stone floor. He followed the directions Thalara had given him earlier, the way to the vault of living archives. It was a place few outsiders ever saw, even fewer humans. The vault was hidden behind a heavy door carved with ancient symbols. Jackson hesitated a moment, then pressed his hand against the cold surface. It slid open silently. Inside, rows of tall shelves stretched as far as he could see. But these shelves were not filled with books like on Earth. Instead, glowing orbs floated in the air, each pulsing with soft light. Jackson reached out and touched one. It responded, opening images and words in the air like a hologram. This was knowledge alive. He scanned the archives, looking for anything about the Queen, the Bo Empire, or why he had been taken here. Hours passed, but he was determined. Then, in a hidden folder deep in the system, he found it. The Progenitor Protocol. The words made him pause. He had heard the name once before, an ancient legend whispered by scholars, a secret buried under centuries of history. The protocol was a genetic failsafe built into the Empire's royal bloodline. It was designed to protect the throne from collapse, to keep the Empire united and strong. But it came with a price. The Queen, Althea Velsar, was not fully Starnari. Her blood was different, unstable. Without the protocol's completion, her life and reign would be short. Worse, the Empire would fracture, and chaos would follow. The only way to complete the protocol was through a bonding ceremony, linking the Queen's blood with a compatible genetic echo, a distant relative from a lost Earth strain. Jackson swallowed hard. The text showed images of twisted DNA strands glowing blue and green, patterns he recognized from his own biology. He was that echo. Suddenly, everything made sense. The Queen's strange gaze, her pointing at him during the coronation. The sudden summons. He was not a prisoner. He was the missing piece. But the thought scared him. If the bonding was real, then the Queen might need him, not as a guest, but as a living tool to save her. Would he be sacrificed? Used like an object? Jackson shook his head. He refused to be a pawn. Suddenly, a voice startled him. Looking for answers, Jackson Reyes? He turned to see Cavall, the alien steward he had met earlier. The small creature had bright green skin and 4 arms folded behind its back. Cavall's eyes twinkled with amusement. "The vault is not for everyone," Cavall said. "You're lucky you found this." Jackson narrowed his eyes. "Why help me?" "Because you're interesting, and because the Queen trusts you." "Trusts me?" Jackson laughed. "I barely know her." Cavall shrugged. "She's not like the old queens. She's desperate." Jackson sighed. "I just want to go home." "Not yet," Cavall said. "But maybe soon, if you play your cards right." Jackson didn't like the sound of that. Cavall led him through secret passages and hidden doors. They arrived in a quiet chamber where the Queen's advisors met. Machines hummed and holograms floated over the table. Jackson saw the Queen there too. She looked tired but determined. "The progenitor protocol," Cavall whispered. "It controls everything." Jackson listened as the advisors spoke in strange languages, some words translated by Cavall. The protocol had begun to fail. The Queen's DNA was breaking down. The ceremony had to happen soon. Jackson realized the Empire was holding its breath. If the bonding failed, the galaxy would tear itself apart. Jackson felt trapped between worlds. He was not a noble, not a warrior, just a man from Earth. Yet here he was, the key to an empire's future. He decided to speak with the Queen. In a private meeting, he asked, "What happens if I say no?" Althea looked into his eyes. "You do not say no. The Empire cannot survive without you. But what about me? You are not a prisoner. You are a partner." Jackson's heart raced. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe this was more than politics and power. But he still feared what he did not understand. Days passed. Jackson trained with the Queen's doctors and scientists. They tested his blood, his DNA, searching for signs of the link. Each test confirmed it. He was part of the progenitor protocol. But the bonding ceremony was mysterious. No one would explain what it really meant. Jackson was left with only one choice: trust the Queen or run, but running was impossible. That night, Jackson stood on the palace balcony. The twin moons of Velmara glowed in the sky. Below, the city sparkled like a sea of stars. He thought of Earth, his family, the quiet life he had lost. He wondered if he could accept this fate. The stars above seemed endless. His future was not. Jackson Reyes sat in the quiet of his room, the soft hum of Velmara's palace surrounding him like a cage. His mind raced. The more he learned about the progenitor protocol, the more he realized he was trapped in a role he did not want. He was not royalty. He was not a soldier. He was just a man from Earth. He wanted to go home. But the Queen had made it clear. He was not free to leave. That night, Jackson made a decision. If he could not convince the Queen to let him go, he would escape. Himself, he began to plan. Velmara was a fortress. Every hall was watched, every exit guarded. But Jackson was clever. Before his capture, he had worked on spacecraft systems and security back on Port Gaia. He knew how machines worked. He understood how to find weak spots. He waited for a time, when the palace guards were less alert. A holiday on Velmara when most soldiers celebrated. He studied the schedules. He memorized the patrol routes, and he secretly borrowed a small access chip from a distracted steward named Kaval, who seemed to enjoy pushing boundaries. With the chip, he could open many locked doors. On the night of the attempt, Jackson dressed in simple black clothing. He carried a small bag with essentials, a basic communicator, a plasma cutter, and a lightweight exo-flight suit borrowed from the palace hangar. He moved silently through the corridors. His heart pounded in his chest. Every step could be his last free step. He reached the hangar bay. Ships of all sizes stood ready. Jackson found the smallest craft, a stealth cruiser built for speed and quiet. It looked perfect. He plugged the access chip into the control panel. The door hissed open. Inside, the seat fit him like a glove. He strapped himself in, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline. He initiated launch sequence. Outside, the palace alarm began to ring. "Security breach! Intruder detected!" A voice echoed through the halls. Jackson's hands flew over the controls. The ship lifted off, slipping past guards and drones. He soared into the dark sky, past the bright towers of Velmara, and aimed for the warp gate. Freedom was within reach. Suddenly, sensors blared. A small ship appeared on his tail, a royal interceptor. Jackson pushed the cruiser to its limits, weaving through asteroid fields and dodging plasma blasts. The interceptor was fast, but so was he. Then, out of nowhere, a larger ship dropped between them. It was the Queen's personal vessel. Jackson's heart sank. A message came through the cruiser's comm. "This is Her Majesty Queen Althea Velsar," the calm voice said. "Jackson Reyes, do not run. You are needed." Jackson ignored the message and pushed the cruiser faster. But then, the Queen's ship appeared right beside him, its cloaking field shimmering. A hatch opened, and to his shock, the Queen herself stepped out onto a small platform in space, visible through the cruiser's viewport. She looked directly at him. "Jackson," she said, her voice strong but filled with sadness. "Please listen." Jackson hesitated. The Queen's ship moved closer, matching his speed. "Running will not save you," she said. "The Empire's fate depends on the progenitor protocol. Without it, my bloodline will end. Without me, the Empire falls apart." Jackson clenched his fists. "Why drag me into this? Why not find someone else?" "Because you are the only one," she said softly. "The ancient bond chose you. I did not. But now, we must face it together." Jackson felt a mix of anger and fear. He wanted to scream, to fight, to escape. But deep down, a small part of him understood. The Queen's ship extended a docking clamp. The cruiser was pulled gently toward her vessel. Jackson's hands trembled as he followed the sequence to dock. When the doors opened, she was waiting. "Come," she said. "We must talk." Inside the Queen's ship, the halls were quieter than the palace, but just as beautiful. The walls shimmered with energy. Jackson followed her to a private room. She closed the door behind them. "I never wanted to trap you," she said. "I only want to save what we built." Jackson looked at her, the woman behind the crown. "Why, me?" he asked. "Because your blood carries the echo of the First Empire, the spark of balance." He shook his head. "I'm just a mechanic." She smiled gently. Sometimes the greatest heroes come from the simplest places. Jackson felt a weight on his chest, the pressure of a destiny he never asked for. The Queen sat down and continued. "There is a ceremony to bind our bloodlines. It is ancient and dangerous. It may change you forever." Jackson swallowed. "And if I refuse?" She looked at him steadily. "The Empire will fall. War will spread. Earth could be destroyed in the chaos." Jackson's mind raced. He thought of his family, his home, and the quiet life he left behind. Could he carry the weight of a galaxy on his shoulders? For hours they talked. No guards, no royal rules. Just two people sharing fears and hopes. Jackson realized the queen was not just a ruler, but a person scared of losing everything. By dawn, Jackson made a decision. He would not run anymore, but he would choose how to fight. Back on the palace, Jackson felt a strange calm. The future was uncertain, but for the first time he understood his role. He was not a prisoner. He was part of a new story, and he would write it his way. Jackson Reyes stood tall in the center of the throne hall. The silver pillars reached up into glowing crystal domes. Bright energy moved through the walls like rivers of light. Dozens of alien nobles in colorful robes filled the space, whispering as they looked at him. He didn't wear royal clothes. He had refused them. Instead, he wore the black jacket from his home on Port Gaia. Simple, honest, Terran-made. Queen Althea Velsar sat quietly on the golden throne above, her violet eyes locked on him. She had summoned the Council of Crowns, the ruling body of the Empire, to make a choice. But this time, it wasn't just about her. It was about him. After his failed escape and long talk with the Queen, Jackson didn't surrender. He made his own demands. If she wanted him to complete the bonding, to finish the progenitor protocol and save the Empire, then Earth would not be treated as a weak colony anymore. Humanity would stand equal to the great powers of the galaxy. No more secrets, no more cages, Jackson had said. If I help you, then my people rise with me. The Queen had listened. Now, the nobles were here to hear what the Terran had to say. One of the nobles, a tall being with golden horns, stepped forward. "You are not royal," he said. "You are not chosen by our traditions. Why should we bend for a human?" Jackson didn't flinch. "Because without me, your empire collapses." Shocked murmurs spread through the chamber. He stepped forward. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to be pulled from my world or tied to ancient rules. But the Queen said it herself. This throne needs me, and I'm not doing this unless Earth is respected." Another noble, an old woman with glowing eyes, frowned. "You speak boldly, perhaps too boldly." Jackson smiled. "That's how humans survived. We speak up, we fight back, and we never kneel unless we choose to." Queen Althea stood now. Her voice echoed like soft thunder. "Jackson Reyes does not ask for power. He asks for respect. He asks for partnership. I accept his terms." Gasps filled the hall. "I declare Earth a sovereign world. I offer full membership to humanity in the High Council. I declare Jackson Reyes not a servant, but first ambassador of Terra." The hall burst into noise, some cheers, some angry shouts. The Queen raised her hand. Silence returned. Today, the Empire changes. Today, we stand not above humanity, but beside it. Later that night, Jackson stood in a garden of glowing trees, staring at the stars. Caval, the strange little alien steward, floated beside him, eating fruit from a silver bowl. "You made a lot of people angry today," Caval said between bites. "I don't care," Jackson replied. "They would have crushed Earth if I stayed silent." "True," Caval nodded. "But you didn't stay silent. You did something rare. You made them listen." Jackson looked at the moons above. "Now I have to go through with the bonding, the ceremony, whatever it is." Caval paused, then nodded slowly. "Yes, it's risky. But it's also the only way to stop a civil war." The next day, final preparations began. Royal healers and scientists examined both Jackson and the Queen. The progenitor protocol was more than a political union. It was a genetic link, designed by ancient science. The ceremony would bind their bloodlines, share strength, and balance the throne's unstable core. But no one had done it with a human before. "No one knows what will happen," said a healer with metal skin. "It could succeed, or it could kill you both." Jackson looked at Althea. She didn't look afraid. I trust you, she said softly. Jackson took a deep breath. Then let's finish this. That evening, the ceremony began in the Heart Hall, a deep chamber filled with floating light crystals and a pool of clear energy called the Life Mirror. Jackson and the Queen stood across from each other. Around them, the council watched in silence. The Life Mirror shimmered. The ancient device was built by the first crown, and it pulsed with energy now, ready to test them both. A voice spoke, not human, not Starnari. It came from the mirror itself, old, mechanical, alive. Do you stand as one chosen by fate and accepted by choice? I do, the Queen said. Jackson hesitated, then replied, I do. Then let the spark bind you. The mirror rose. In a beam of light, and thin threads of glowing energy stretched from it, touching both Jackson and Althea. Jackson felt heat in his chest, like fire and ice at the same time. His vision blurred. Memories not his own flashed through his mind, battles, stars being born, old kings and queens standing tall. He felt her fear, her strength, her loneliness, and she felt his courage. The light grew stronger. The hall glowed like a rising sun, and then silence. Jackson opened his eyes. He was on his knees. Althea knelt beside him, holding his arm. The mirror had dimmed. The chamber was still, and then the mirror spoke one last time. The bond is complete. The protocol is fulfilled, balance restored. Cheers broke out across the hall. The nobles stood and bowed deeply. For the first time in generations, the throne was whole. Outside the palace, lights danced in the sky. All across Velmara, people celebrated. In Earth's colonies, messages arrived. Humanity had risen. And Jackson? He wasn't just a mechanic anymore. He was the man who saved an empire and made it listen to Earth. Velmara shined like a star. The skies above the palace were filled with light. Ships flew in formation, fireworks danced in the clouds, and giant banners with both the imperial sigil and the Earth flag waved side by side. The ceremony was over. The progenitor protocol was complete. Queen Althea Velsar's bloodline had been stabilized, and Jackson Reyes, once just a colony mechanic, was now the first human ever bonded to the royal line. He should have felt proud. But all he felt now was pain. The attack came without warning. Only one day after the bonding, as Velmara celebrated, an explosion shook the palace. Jackson was walking with the Queen through the East Garden when it happened. The blast came from above, a small drone hidden among the light displays. It wasn't loud, but deadly. Sharp metal and fire sprayed through the air. Without thinking, Jackson threw himself in front of the Queen. He felt the heat, the sharp sting, in his shoulder. And then everything went dark. When Jackson opened his eyes, the room was dim, quiet. He was lying in a soft bed. A small white drone floated beside him, checking his vitals. He tried to move. Pain shot through his chest. The door opened, and Queen Althea stepped in wearing a simple robe. Her face was pale, her hands shaking slightly, but her eyes were strong. "You saved my life," she said quietly. Jackson gave a weak smile. Wasn't planning to die yet. She sat beside him. The attack came from inside the palace, from nobles who wanted to stop the bond. "Figures," Jackson muttered. "Old powers hate change." "They failed," she said, "but you were hurt. Badly. The blast nearly reached your heart." "Then why am I alive?" She smiled faintly. "Because the protocol worked. Your body healed faster than any humans ever could. The bond protected you." Jackson blinked. He remembered. The strange light during the ceremony, the way their thoughts had touched. Maybe it was real after all. A few days later, Jackson was strong enough to walk again. The Queen invited him to stand beside her as the new imperial charter was read. It was a historic day. The charter was rewritten to include Earth as a full member of the Empire. Not a colony, not a trade post, but an equal world, with its own seat on the High Council. Jackson Reyes was named Shield of the Crown, a title never before given to anyone outside the royal bloodline. It meant protector, partner, symbol. The people cheered. Even the nobles who once hated him now gave small nods of respect. After the ceremony, Jackson walked alone to the top of the Sky Tower, the highest point in the palace. From there, he could see the vast city below. Ships moved like stars. Voices and music floated through the wind. Cavall appeared beside him, eating again as usual. "You've become very important, human," Cavall said with a grin. Jackson chuckled. "I just wanted to fix engines. Now I'm fixing empires." "Not bad for a mechanic," Cavall said. "But tell me the truth, do you miss home?" Jackson looked up at the stars. "I miss Earth," he said. "I miss real air, dirty boots, simple problems." Cavall nodded. "You know, you could go back now. The Queen would allow it." Jackson was quiet. He thought about the people of Port Gaia, the workshop, his old bed. But he also thought about the Queen, the war they had stopped, and the new peace growing here. "I don't think I can go back," Jackson said. "Not yet. Because of her." Jackson smiled. Because of all of them. Weeks passed. Jackson began his duties as ambassador of Terra. He met with leaders from across the Empire. He spoke of Earth's history, its mistakes, its strength. He reminded them that humanity doesn't give up, even when the galaxy forgets them. And slowly, the galaxy started to listen. One day, while walking through the palace garden, the Queen joined him again. "You've changed everything," she said. "The council is shifting. Old traditions are breaking. And that scares them," Jackson said. "Yes, but not me." She looked at him for a long moment. "You once said you didn't want to be here. Do you still feel that way?" He took a deep breath. "I didn't want it. But now, I can't imagine walking away." She reached out and gently held his hand. Then, "Stay, not as a tool, not as a part of a protocol, but as my partner, as a Terran who stood when others ran." Jackson nodded. "I'll stay, but not as a symbol. Then as what? As me." And so, Jackson Reyes, once a simple human from a forgotten colony, became a symbol of something new, not just for Earth, not just for Velmara, but for the galaxy. A future where power didn't come from birth, but from choice, where the throne didn't stand above humanity, but beside it. And in the history books of both Earth and the stars, one line would be written forever. The Queen pointed to a human, and the galaxy changed forever.